Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back. Just so you know, there's no such thing as magic, but there is such a thing as nature. When the totality of reality notices you in light of what benefits the rest of humanity, whether or not you can see the totality right then and there as you receive what you desire as a beneficial outcome, whether or not you can see the totality of what that outcome does, so long as that totality sees you in light of what benefits the rest of humanity, and it grants you a gift to which you are the best medium to multiply that gift to give to the rest of the intelligence expressing themselves as other humans. That is when we realize that good things are happening. That is when we consider magical moments. Again, there's no such thing as magic, but there is such a thing as nature. Nature always looks at the totality of circumstance. This thing that's allowing me to utter these words, thoughts, this thing that's allowing you to take these words and perceive it, thoughts, no one really knows where it comes from. We can say the mind, but nonetheless, where's the mind pulling it from? Part of that is in the battery of where our cells are connected to. Another invisible strings somewhere else where everything readily is available, and we are just pulling it into our format, our medium of expression, based on how well refined we currently are within a particular stage of development. What we call magic is no different. If you are a human being, you utter words, you see things, you feel things, you use discernment, reasoning, and you're able to articulate it with words or put it into any format. You think of a color, blue, and you dye the shirt blue. You think of a certain design of shoes that you want because, well, it's snowing and I want the boots to have some white and black contrast so it matches the snow. You think today, I'm hungry, I want to cook for myself, so you do this. You think, all right, new fiscal year, I have new goals, I want to hit 7 figures. And therefore, you go out there and you start doing more business. You start networking, whatever format it is in different aspect of life, wherever you are. Believe it or not, that itself is magic because you are pulling something from a realm that nobody can actually see or observe with the 5 senses. Yet you are materializing it and you're making it into something dense that is observable in this slower moving aspect of existence. And the only way that will be beneficial and the only way that would ever come forth is if at some point, one way or another, nature sees that within the totality of circumstance, that which you desire can be expressed towards you as the most ideal medium to which other people can benefit from. It then grants you that ability because everything is already there. You just have to pull into it so long as it fits your Bible, we call it Ori, so long as it fits your Ori, so long as it fits your divine higher self. The divine higher self has a set of programming that you've brought here for you to do. Magic does not exist. Whenever you start to do something that is in line with the refinement of your soul, things just so happen to come forth easier. And if for whatever reason during your past conditioning you've been told otherwise, when it begins to happen, in fact, you think it's magic, when in truth, you're just simply making yourself one with what is supposed to be. Because that one, aka nature, sees you as a proper medium based on your refinement to be able to give to the totality that even you might not see. Magic does not exist. No different than when you begin to do certain things with the moon. So much that that word, quote, moon magic has been coined. there is no such thing as magic. We went over a video regarding lunar mansions, aka lunar stations. We all know lunar refers to moon. This lunar station are the stages whereby the moon is in certain cycles. Those cycles pulls in other attributes that increases the odds and ebbs and flow of things happening. Those speaking of this thing called moon magic don't oftentimes know about lunar stations or lunar mansions. This term moon magic is just a fanatical term. If you've ever listened to me speak of anything else, whether it be the man-made law-related things or other things that are substantive, such as spirituality, I constantly emphasize the importance of not using anything strictly for the purpose of hiding your own filth or running away or using it as some form of shelter from reality. Most who deal with this thing called moon magic are just playing around with it. Remember, no such thing as magic exists. And the closest thing to magic is what's been explained at the beginning of this video. If you really want to use the moon, the reality is that divinity exists everywhere at all times. Therefore, there's no moment that you will wake up on this thing called Earth. As long as your soul is still expressing itself in the form of the body that you're currently in, there are no moments or any other day that divine essence and life form and life force does not exist in order to answer your response, waiting to grant what you desire so long as it fits the totality of circumstance and the forward motion of the intelligence that splits itself in where you are a form of that thing that splits itself for a particular goal and you're part of it, whether you realize it or not. That is to say, when it comes to using moon phases, whether it's waning or waxing, which is the more common one people know, but far beyond the waning or waxing aspect of moon or new moon, there are lunar mansions, whereby during certain times of the year, during certain fixed dates, there have been tabulated formulas for higher likelihood of influences. For instance, Aries we know is dealing with passion, beginning something, action, and in some case, lust, war, and in some case, accidents, feud, and violence. It has its positive side and negative side. What the moon does is it filters all those attributes from that planetary body called Mars. And then it dissects it into portions based on what we call lunar stations or lunar mansions. Meaning, if Aries was a whole circle and you were to put it into sections within that circle, there will be portions of that circles of Aries, aka the Lord being Mars. Aries is the constellation. And by the way, as a side note, when you hear Aries being a constellation and Mars being the Lord, or Taurus being a constellation and Venus being the Lord, or Gemini being the constellation of Mercury being the Lord, what that means is no different than how human cities have sister cities, whereby you can concentrate and point to one energy from one part of Earth to the other part of Earth, and you see similarities of how water flow, of certain things about the characteristics of the people, characteristics of height, weight, and similitude of how governments are ran in humanity. That's another link as to how sister cities exist, unbeknownst to many. Well, the same thing applies on a planetary level, whereby among a bigger level within the template that we call the skies, certain planets within certain solar systems are very much a closer link to certain other bodies of solar system based on similitude. So now you have Aries, which is a constellation, which is bodies in combination of solar systems. And in Our solar system, the similitude of Aries that's closest to it is Mars. Remember, it's always whatever is the closest to it that will be identified and recognized, that we usually now refer to as magic, because we can now tap into that. During that, if we were to now look at that circle of Aries and put it into sections, based on experience that masters have accounted for over millions of years of human existence, during a particular part of May, there's an attribute of Aries that is good for certain things. Remember, we mentioned different things relating to Aries: passion, lust, action, beginning something new, accidents, violence, war, all that. During other portions of that same May, Aries, Mars, expresses itself in a certain format that will best benefit you to do certain things. That is to say, despite divine energies existing everywhere at all times, when you begin to use the lunar mansions or moon magic, as many might colloquially term it, what you are doing is, in place of you walking by foot from point A to point B, the moment you align yourself with these natural cycles and dates when it comes to certain intent, assuming you know what each of these mansions serves for you and their influence, all you're doing is you're hopping on a bus that's going to that same direction. But instead of you going into the bus, compensating the driver for a fee, nature's law has it that you don't have to do that, because you're already part of nature. You're already part of that driver that rode in that destination. Therefore, all you have to do is recognize that you can just hop on the side of that bus and just hold on to the rails, and it will move you at a faster pace to your destination. But had you not done so by aligning yourself to the quote unquote moon magic or the lunar mansions, you would have to take more time and more effort and more toil to walk there manually, rather than basically moving faster. You move faster when you align yourself for certain cycles, because that's what they're there for. If you don't do so, it does not prevent you from getting to the destination. It might just take a little bit of time. Same thing applies with fortune, whereby people can take others' fortune and cause someone who is supposed to be a multimillionaire at a particular age to get old with gray hair, barely able to enjoy the monies until they turn multimillionaire. Or they can quicken fortunes the other way. Things like that, depending on how severe, how malicious, or how good-hearted whoever it is doing the work is. Things like these exist in reality. Again, there's no such thing as magic, but there is such thing as nature. And when the totality of reality notices you in light of what benefits the rest of humanity, and it grants you a gift to which you are the best medium to multiply that gift to give to the rest of the intelligence, expressing itself as humanity, that is when we realize that good things are happening. That is what we consider magical moments. When you do a spiritual work and it works, the success of a given spiritual work itself is not magic. I emphasize, the success of any spiritual work is not magic. It is not special. It is simply that the divine intelligence heard your intent and saw your soul as the perfect medium to carry out a greater will. And that divine intelligence knows that if it grants you what you asked for, somewhere along the line, some way, somehow, you will use that gift granted to you in some ways to add to the totality of forward motion of humanity. If anyone was to give you an easier layman definition of what that word, quote, magic is, that is what magic really is. Beyond the speculation, beyond trickery, beyond misinformation. That is simply what magic is. The reason spiritual work does not work for some is because what they are asking for does not improve the totality of man's well-being. In other words, you are demanding the wrong thing via spiritual work. Quite often, there are stages you need to take as stepping stones to getting what you actually want. Because spiritual demands is the same thing as building muscles. For someone with blockade in their essence, they can pray all day, do rituals in format of what they perceive as religion or unorthodox things. They can do that as much as they desire. Those prayers and rituals will go nowhere and lead to no result. The first stage in any spiritual work, the first etiquette in any spiritual work, is to first open the door to the room where spiritual work and prayers are accepted. Outside of that room where spiritual prayers and work are accepted, you're just doing something else. And the way you open the door to that room, that proper venue within the sphere of existence, whereby you can be heard and seen, so that totality of circumstance can grant you what you desire. And minimally, if it does not grant you what you desire, it will show you what you need to do for what you desire to be granted to you. Cleansing is the first step to that. Let me put it this way. Women who yearn to be seen by men act and pretend to be one. Men who yearn to be seen by women act and pretend to be one. This is what I mean. When you see a woman that is overzealous in the things she performs, whether or not she realizes it, when you see a man who acts overzealous in the things he performs, so much that it mimics the opposite gender, whether they realize it or not, the reason they're doing that is because they seek attention from the corresponding gender. Because they're doing their best to speak the language of that other gender to comprehend what they desire. Men who are well dressed and well put together, who wear colognes, dress shoes, who polish their nail, they're not necessarily interested in their own gender, but more so those are the languages, subtle languages that women speak. So women easily notice those things. But that can be taken a little bit too far, to the point where that man can get lost in the sauce of that, and it becomes a detriment. Women who seeks attention of a man, you will notice, tend to want to mimic men in the way they walk, in the mannerism of how they talk, in their aspirations in life. And there's nothing wrong with those. There's always good intent involved. But the detriment to that is when it goes too far, that woman can also get lost in that sauce and may not even realize it until it is too late. Nature is the same way. If you want nature to hear the things that you intend to accomplish, utilize similitude, but don't go too far with it, because you might just get lost in the sauce of speculation, because nature itself is so vast and infinite that all of what it constitutes and what constitute it can never really be known. So it is easy to begin speculating, to get into fanatical things and role playing. That's the detrimental portion of spirituality. So much that some things inside of you that are detriment itself begins to come up. This is where you start to see people using religion as a reason to harm other human beings, whether it be by taking life or by tort or by creating a system of finance, one way or the other. Those are the end of the extreme of things. Once you start doing that, you start to steer away from your goal. I say that to emphasize the importance of lack of speculation. It is very easy to fall into speculative things, especially when dealing with spirituality. But nonetheless, when done right, similarity, aka similitude, is the key. Similarity with what you intend to obtain through spiritual work. You must take the things involved in your desired outcome and use it. An example of what I know that works is sugar, salt, and warm water. This is usually done during the first month of any year. If you want to forecast a year that's not bitter, a year that's not cold, a year that's not painful, but a year that's sweet, there's something called Ashe. Ashe is that which causes things to be, independent of other circumstances, independent of other attributes. Sugar has the Ashe of sweetness. So does salt. Wherever you are on earth, if those two things are added to anything, it amplifies their taste. It amplifies the sweetness. And if that thing naturally does not have sweetness, when you add sugar, automatically, sugar expresses itself in form of sweetness. Because there are things you can add sugar to that those things don't necessarily bind with the molecules of sugar. So those things will not necessarily be expressed in form of sweetness. But nonetheless, the sugar itself will express itself separately as you consume it. That's the Ashe that naturally exists in sugar and salt that no one can take away. That's what they've been brought here to function. That same thing, that same function on a realm that cannot be seen, that causes it to be expressed always guaranteed in the physical world a certain way, is what you will now take. Sugar on the right hand, salt on the left hand. Preferably sea salt is the best because it's derived from water, which consists of 70% of this earth's crust mass, meaning at the top of the earth without going into the core of it. The majority of the mass is water, at least 70%. That itself, whatever is derived from it, will have a similitude of giving you a higher odds of what you're doing. That's the reason why they always say sea salt is best. But if you cannot find sea salt, then other types of salt will work also. Now, certain types of salt derived from certain mountains are used for certain things. That's different from what I'm about to speak of, but sea salt is the best. Sugar, any type of sugar will work, whether it's brown, whether it's white. Sugar in the right palm, salt in the left palm. You will then have warm water in front of you. The similitude of balance. Warm water is not too hot. Warm water is not too cold. This particular work is done around 1 a.m. See, there's a secret to 1 a.m. because 1 a.m. is when people who do spiritual things usually convene. 1 a.m., if you've read anything relating to witches and things like that, they will tell you that those are witching hours or whatever verbiage they give it, 12 a.m. to around 3 a.m. I've made many patron posts about this in text. But in summary, those are the times of the day where the water in every living thing is closer to the surface. This is the reason why you would always see mildews on plant when you wake up in the morning, or you will see some mist or fog. Well, the same thing is happening in your body. And what that does to the human system is the plasma that's in the blood, which is the core of the blood, which is, by the way, where your spiritual essence sits when it comes to the reason why blood are used in certain things, which is another subject matter. That plasma is working in overdrive during those times of the day, 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. So when you do spiritual work right at the median point, it is at its height, which is usually calculated anywhere from, which is usually more noticeable by those who are more sensitive spiritually, around 1 to 1:30. So that's the reason why it's always said that 1 a.m. is the best time to begin to do spiritual work. Preferably, this work is best done before the second month of any new year. You take sugar in your right palm, salt in the left, warm water sitting in a container in front of you. Of course, if you don't have someone else to pour those two things in your hand, then just put it on a piece of paper. And of course, find a way to do it whereby none of those grains get in the water first. So just get sugar in the right hand, salt in the left. And of course, as always, you always come as you are. The same clothing the divine creator placed on you when you came on earth is how you would always be when you do spiritual works. Ass naked. I'm not trying to be funny, and I'm not suggesting you do anything crazy, but it's just simply how it is. Take it or leave it. All these materials of fabric, even if you've owned it for a while and your electromagnetic field has been housed in it, each time you wash it, all those chemicals you wash it with, from where it's coming from, what it's made of, you don't know what thought forms are attached to that, let alone the spirit attached to it. You want to absent yourself of all of that. Come as you are. Then you proceed with however you know how to pray. For some people, they know Psalm. Psalm is just another chapter in the Bible for purpose of incantation. It's simple as that. For some people looking at it, that's all they see. For some looking at it, they see it as a motivational speech about God and his people. Okay, cool. However you see it, find whatever prayer and psalm relating to sweetness and good fortune. Even if it's relating to anything when it comes to battle or when it comes to feud, and you want to turn it into sweetness. Evoke it. If you're using the Quran, find whatever chapter is appropriate. If you use neither and you have other forms of incantation with your culture, put it to use. If none of that still exists in your reality and you're an atheist, well, if you're an atheist, this wouldn't work because you have to believe in something greater than you. And it always exists. Even among humans, hierarchies exist. Among humans, there's always someone greater, better than you. And if that similitude exists in a physical realm, know without the slightest doubt that the same exists on a realm that you do not see. So if anyone listening to this happened to be an atheist, then maybe some more soul searching needs to be done. But the reality is, all the different God that people refer to in religion, it's just based on the manner and the medium that they choose to evoke divine intelligence. That they've gone to the end of the extreme to say only their manner and their way and their language and their story matters. That's the fuckery I was speaking of at the beginning, where people take it to the end of the extreme, even in spirituality. And that turns some people off. That traumatizes some people, so they turn atheists. So I don't blame those who are atheists, but nonetheless realize that whatever damage has been done to the mind by men, know that those men are inferior to divine power. You should not let someone's inferior capability stop you from growing and connecting to that which is naturally your birthright, which is naturally always waiting, ready, listening to give you what you desire. Whatever the case may be, whatever spiritual system you have, however you know how to pray. Once you have the salt in the left hand, sugar in the right hand, warm water in the middle, ass naked around 1 a.m., begin your affirmations of what you desire. Be as particular and meticulous, specific as possible. This is now the purpose of this work. The purpose of this work is to convert anything, whatever you're dealing with, into sweetness by way of what you come in contact with your hand and feet. Therefore, once you're done with the prayer, affirmation, whatever it is you call it, take both of those, submerge both of your hands together in the warm water, mix it together. You're not going to take a spiritual bath with this water. You're simply going to rinse your hands and your foot with it. That's it. Rinse your hands and your foot with it. Then go to sleep. Usually, what would happen is You would have a dream whereby, in my case, here's an example. The first time that I ever did this, there was something that I was dealing with that wasn't necessarily a struggle, but was somewhat antagonistic. After doing this the first time, I had a dream that I was using my hands and feet in a very particular way to conquer this thing. In other words, what I'm telling you is you will have a dream that will clearly show you. Now, I don't know about everyone else. Some people might not. You will be shown a vision relating to your hands and feet, particular to whatever challenge you're dealing with. And since we're speaking on the note of visions, aka dreams, if you have a tendency to constantly forget your dreams, here are some of the reasons why, and consequently the solution to preventing the forgetfulness of a dream or a vision. There are many reasons why people don't remember their visions. The more obvious things are consuming too much matter into your bowels and your digestive tract before resting. The blood flow to the brain reduces, and your digestive tract is going overtime, and all the nerves concentrated in your solar plexus that merges directly with the brain is disrupted, and there's a blockade. That's one. And the reason why most people end up having nightmares after eating too close to bedtime is because usually there's a prophetic dream about to show up, but it is interpreted by the mind in a less accurate manner. See, the thing about prophetic dreams is they catch your attention just as much as nightmares do. When you interrupt the flow of life, aka blood, between the solar plexus and the brain, you get nightmare. And that is if you're about to have prophetic dreams. If you're not having prophetic dreams, the least that can happen is you just don't remember your visions. You know you had vision. You vaguely recall it, but you don't particularly recall exactly what. Well, that's because something is blocking it internally. And that is because of an excessive amount of consumption of matter close to bedtime. This is another reason why they always tell people don't consume any matter after sunset. Because the presumption is most people's circadian rhythms are attached to the sun, which gives life to organic matters on Earth. The second reason why is relating to the first, which is the blockade of flow of life between the solar plexus and the brain. And that being your sleeping position. If you are caught in between blankets and things like that, and it somehow affects your breathing, you will forget your visions. Remember, when you do the spiritual work related to sugar, salt, and warm water, you are supposed to see something. So make sure these attributes are online so that you have the proper environment to receive the proper information. So the clutter of your environment that you're laying in affects your ability to remember or to have proper visions while you're resting. Sometimes it can't be helped because you don't notice or see yourself as you're tossing and turning. But try to reduce the probability of your breathing being affected. Third is also relating to space, which is your living environment. Physical objects are not dead. They are alive. They are very, very active. The less physical objects you have around you, even during your waking life in your living space, more so when you are at rest, the less physical objects surround you, the easier your soul is able to receive information. The easier you, who leaves this physical shell, go places, do things, and bring them back. The easier it is for you to navigate and travel easily because the anchor is the body and the environment, because each item that you carry around has their own auric field. And the more clutter you have physically, the more cluttered those auric field of those physical item clutters yours. And it affects your clairvoyance abilities and all the other subtle senses beyond the fifth ones. That's very, very important. Next, as to the reason why visions are not remembered or why nightmares are experienced is how you feel. Feelings of argument, anticipation of something the next day, or fear are the three greatest detriment to any type of spiritual work, whether it involves rest or not. The feeling you should always have before going to rest is not necessarily the giddy, happy one, because believe it or not, there are things that walk during the night, that floats during the night, that if you're giddy and happy, they want to eat it. That's food for them. The best state of mind and condition to be in before going to rest, as a balance and equivalence for protection or otherwise, such as remembering your vision and having more focus, without your own essence scattering or being blocked. The best state of mind to have is that of a determined mind, a determination of a purpose and intent. In your case, your purpose and intent is the similitude of the spiritual work you've just done with sugar and salt and warm water. Until next time, take care. Best of luck.